Indonesia dan Belanda memiliki ikatan kuat berdasarkan sejarah yang panjang. Kedua negara kini menjalin persahabatan yang solid di berbagai bidang. Halo pemirsa, saya Gracia Simanjuntak. Selamat datang di International Corner Antara. Bersama saya di Antara Heritage Center telah hadir Duta Besar Belanda untuk Indonesia, His Excellency Lambert Grijns. Selamat siang.
Selamat siang.
Apa kabar?
Baik-baik saja, Bu.
Baik, oke. Alright, let's jump right into the first segment ya Pak.
Ya, boleh.
Setelah tinggal di Indonesia beberapa tahun, apa kesan Bapak tentang Indonesia? Apa hal yang paling menarik dari Indonesia?
Aduh, itu pertanyaan agak sulit karena ini sudah tahun kelima saya di sini sebagai dubes Belanda. Tapi dulu saya juga tinggal di sini, lahir dan besar di sini tahun 60-an. Terus juga pulang ke Indonesia tahun 80-an sebagai mahasiswa. Jadi bisa membandingkan tahun 60-an, 80-an dan sekarang. Mungkin yang paling mengesankan itu perbedaan nilai pendidikan di Indonesia. Misalnya kalau di sini di Jakarta banyak orang sekarang, orang muda bisa bicara bahasa Inggris lancar sekali. Nilai bahasa Inggris di sini bagus sekali sekarang. Kalau dibandingkan dengan dulu, misalnya waktu saya di sini sebagai mahasiswa, jarang ada yang bisa bicara bahasa Inggris.
Yeah.
Jadi nilai pendidikan itu memang, ada perbedaan besar. Juga mungkin nilai kekayaan. Jadi dulu Indonesia agak miskin kan di sini. Sekarang kebanyakan orang ya itu ada nilai hidup lebih jauh lebih tinggi sekarang daripada di tahun 60-an.
Baik, kami mendengar tentang kecintaan Pak Dubes tentang gedung-gedung bersejarah di Indonesia. Bagaimana pandangan Pak Dubes tentang gedung-gedung bersejarah dan warisan budaya di Indonesia secara umum?
Ya, itu mungkin sedikit kebetulan, tapi latar belakang saya urban planning, jadi tata ruang kota kan. Jadi saya suka gedung-gedung sejarah, gedung-gedung kuno seperti yang ini. Ini baru diperbaiki, direnovasi. Jadi aku sangat terkesan tentang gedung Antara ini yang dari tahun 1920. Jadi ini juga gedung sejarah dan ini direnovasi dengan baik, misalnya dengan tegel-tegel yang masih asli atau kelihatan masih asli. Dan saya tinggal di Menteng di Jakarta dan di sana masih banyak bangunan tua. Masih ada banyak gedung-gedung rumah-rumah yang dari zaman 100 tahun yang lalu. Ya. Tapi sulit karena the land price di Menteng terlalu tinggi, jadi yang penting tanahnya bukan rumahnya. Jadi banyak rumah yang dihancurkan, sayang. Ya. Dan
menurut Bapak masih terjaga terjaga keasliannya?
Ada banyak orang yang menjaga dan yang benar-benar suka rumah-rumah kuno itu. Tapi tentu saja tantangan paling besar itu duitnya ya. Jadi, tapi kalau di Belanda misalnya rumah kuno punya harga lebih tinggi daripada rumah modern. Jadi kalau ada awareness tentang harganya gedung-gedung kuno, harganya juga akan naik lagi.
Baik, obviously Indonesia dan Belanda punya sejarah panjang yang kuat. Bisa Bapak ceritakan bagaimana pendapat masyarakat Belanda tentang Indonesia saat ini?
Saya pikir Indonesia salah satu negara paling populer di Belanda? Sebagai sebagai kunjungan turistis pariwisata. Banyak orang di Belanda yang pergi ke Bali, ke Jawa sebagai turis. Tapi juga ada banyak orang Indonesia yang tinggal di Belanda. Jadi atau orang keturunan Indonesia. Seperti 15% dari orang Belanda punya keturunan Indonesia.
Darah Indonesia.
Jadi ada hubungannya dekat sekali. Ada banyak orang rumah makan Indonesia di Belanda. Saya dulu waktu saya kuliah di Amsterdam suka memasak masakan Indonesia. Cari serundeng, cari rempeyek, cari ini bumbu-bumbu Indonesia di toko yang di samping karena ada di sana. Jadi kalau mau hidup secara Indonesia di sana bisa.
Tidak sulit sama sekali.
Ya, ada. Jadi ya, dan juga di nilai politik dan ekonomis hubungannya dekat sekali. 4 tahun yang lalu ada kunjungan Raja dan Ratu dari Belanda ke Indonesia. 75 tahun setelah merdeka, setelah tahun 45. Juga sebagai simbol kemitraan dan hubungan dekat antara dua negara itu. Di bidang ekonomis, orang salah satu negara investasi paling besar dari Uni Eropa. Dari 10 euro yang diinvestasi di sini, 7 datang dari Belanda, dari Uni Eropa. Jadi 70% investasi dari Belanda di sini. Jadi ada beberapa perusahaan-perusahaan Belanda besar yang punya pabrik di sini. Dan, jadi ada hubungan cukup kuat antara dua negara. Terus ada banyak universitas dan mahasiswa yang kuliah di sini.
Betul.
Researchers, peneliti yang bekerja di sini. Tentu saja juga banyak orang Indonesia ke Belanda. Ya, jadi hubungannya kuat sekali.
Ya. Bapak sudah singgung tentang hubungan masyarakat juga bisnis. Menurut Pak Dubes, upaya apa yang perlu dilakukan lagi untuk meningkatkan mutual trust dan hubungan masyarakat, people to people contact antara kedua negara?
Nah, saya pikir itu kata yang paling penting, people to people contact. Kalau orang bisa mengunjungi negara yang lain itu, atau membaca sesuatu tentang negara lainnya itu, atau bicara dengan teman-teman yang dari negara itu, ya bisa mengerti. Jadi ada banyak diskusi di Belanda sekarang tentang sejarah, juga tentang periode yang buruk itu. Zaman kolonial dan zaman 45-49. Jadi sekarang masyarakat Belanda mulai mengerti apa yang terjadi yang buruk itu. Sudah di kurikulum di Belanda sekarang juga dijelaskan dengan baik apa yang terjadi, dan juga tanggung jawab Belanda. Jadi sebab itu juga Perdana Menteri dan Raja mengucapkan minta maaf kepada kebangsaan Indonesia juga buat yang terjadi di zaman itu. Jadi sekarang orang Belanda lebih sadar tentang sejarahnya dan tanggung jawabnya. Dan saya juga harap bahwa orang Indonesia juga bisa belajar tentang sejarah, dan kalau kamu tahu tentang sejarah kamu sendiri, bisa juga mengerti dengan lebih baik masa depannya. Dari sejarah ke masa depan harus mengerti dua-duanya.
Dan itu disadari oleh generasi muda juga.
Jadi kami selalu mengundang orang muda untuk mengunjungi Belanda, tapi juga orang Belanda untuk mengerti, untuk membuka pikirannya kepada Indonesia. Di Belanda ada banyak pikiran tentang Indonesia yang masih belum benar, karena kami juga tidak cukup educated tentang Indonesia. Orang Belanda yang mengunjungi Indonesia selalu bertanya, Pak Dubes, apakah saya bisa bilang saya orang Belanda? Karena mereka takut accused tentang sejarah kolonial. Ya jangan takut, orang Indonesia suka sama Belanda. Misalnya timnas Belanda yang football itu kan minggu kemarin, banyak orang Indonesia yang mendukung timnas Belanda. Orang di Belanda heran, di Indonesia mereka tidak marah lagi.
Dan mereka senang.
Ya, mereka senang. Jadi hubungan people to people itu memang penting. Juga saya pikir ada pemain football dulu yang bekas Belanda, sekarang di timnas Indonesia kan. Tapi juga ada pemain football Indonesia yang di tim Belanda. Nah, mereka sebagai dubes-dubes di dua-dua negara itu. Jadi they can create so much sympathy and understanding.
Senang mendengarnya. Terima kasih banyak Pak Dubes. Kita akan lanjutkan ke segmen kedua. Demikian pemirsa perbincangan saya dengan Duta Besar Belanda untuk Indonesia, His Excellency Lambert Grijns. Terima kasih telah menyaksikan International Corner. Sampai jumpa di segmen berikutnya. Halo pemirsa, Anda kembali menyaksikan International Corner Antara bersama saya Gracia Simanjuntak. International Corner masih bersama dengan Duta Besar Belanda untuk Indonesia, His Excellency Lambert Grijns. Excellency, we will talk about Indonesia and ASEAN relations for this segment. Let's get to it. Indonesia and the Netherlands will experience, both will experience a change of administration this year. Okay, so what are your hopes for the new administrations and their impact on the new relations between the two countries?
Yes, it's true. We just started the new administration actually a couple of weeks ago in the Netherlands. And of course, we will have a new administration here in Indonesia as of the end of October. And as I said, we are very privileged that we have such a strong and connected relationship between these two countries. Now, as an ambassador or as governments, I think we have the responsibility to keep that relation well. Because there's much at stake. We have a very strong economic relation. There's a lot of personal exchange. Think of the enormous amount of Indonesian students who are studying in the Netherlands. We provide more than 1,200 visa every week to Indonesians.
Wow.
And there are many Dutch people, for instance, researchers, students who want to come to Indonesia. So that relationship is very strong and very important. We expect that also with the new government here and the new government which just started in the Netherlands 2 weeks ago, that relation will become even better and better and better. Just a small example, actually, just when the new Dutch Minister of Foreign Affairs started his work, Ibu Retno immediately wanted to send WhatsApp and wanted to communicate. Because those two ministers, they communicate continuously with each other about everything. Also about the issues where we do not have the similar position, but it's important to be closely connected. So the Netherlands and Indonesia, we try to always find each other about particular topics. So before we say something, we look at Indonesia. What does Indonesia think of it? So we reach out to our Indonesian counterparts because we think Indonesia is an important player in the region. You're a strong middle power here in the region, and we want to help Indonesia perform its role as a neutral middle power in the region. So yes, Indonesia is an important player for us, and we hope that we can be an important player to Indonesia.
Regarding economic relations, what sectors do you think are the most important and potential to explore further for cooperation?
Yes, well, traditionally we have had a couple of big Dutch companies which have invested in Indonesia. Just 2 weeks ago, a major Dutch company. It's called Friesland Campina. They opened their biggest factory worldwide here in Indonesia. You know Friesland Campina from Susu Bendera?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the brand is well known.
Yes.
And they want now also to expand to other products, dairy products.
Mm-hmm.
Milk, of course, is very important for young people, especially for babies. So they see a big market. So this is an example of a Dutch company which is producing in Indonesia for the Indonesian market, but also to export to other countries. But of course, there's also a lot of exchange of, for instance, knowledge and expertise. Think of the Dutch water sector.
Yeah, right.
There's a lot of expertise on the Dutch side regarding water management. So we do a lot together with Indonesian government and Indonesian companies. For instance, in the field of flood protection. Another field where there's a lot of Dutch expertise is agriculture, intensive agriculture. Actually, we're the second biggest exporter of agricultural products in the world. So Holland is a very small country, but we are a very big exporter of agricultural products. So that is possible thanks to a very intensive use of greenhouses and of production technology. But we need to do that in a sustainable way. So using little energy and little water, low pesticide use and low waste production. So that's a typical Dutch expertise which we share with Indonesia. Another issue, I think that's one of the most important issues for all of us, is climate change and is the energy transition. So how can we share expertise and knowledge in the field of
dealing with climate change?
The transition to cleaner energy and more sustainable way of living. Indonesia is very much dependent on coal. The Netherlands used to be very much dependent on gas, on natural gas. So I think these two countries are very similar in the sense that we were like addicted to cheap energy. The Netherlands had gas and Indonesia has cheap coal, but you have to go through the transformation to go to other sources of energy. Now there we can share experience and also technology. A fourth example is maritime. We are both maritime countries.
Yes.
Indonesia, obviously, with so many islands, you are a maritime nation by far. But the Netherlands also, we have for a long time been a very big maritime country. We are dependent on the seas. So we have a lot in common. So there's a lot of exchange which we have with Indonesia in the field of maritime, port development, shipbuilding, waste management. Another example, a big challenge for cities, especially the upcoming cities in Indonesia, to deal with their waste. In the Netherlands, we are a very small country, very padat, very densely populated.
Dense.
So how to get rid of your waste? Well, we know very well. And actually, we make energy out of the waste. So from waste to energy plants. Now, this is an example where we try to work together with Indonesia, where Dutch technology can be helpful.
So glad to hear that. What are the potentials for cooperation between the two countries for development of the new and renewable energy as well as sustainable development?
Well, we look with strong interest to Indonesia. We see Indonesia as a very attractive market for export, but we also see that Indonesia is a strong regional player, which we have to take very seriously. That's why we are negotiating a comprehensive free trade agreement with Indonesia, between the European Union and Indonesia. It's essential for both, for Indonesia and for the European Union, to have that free trade agreement so that we can freely do business. That will give an enormous boost to both sides. Indonesia, of course, is a strong exporter of agricultural products. Think of palm oil.
Palm oil.
And now also or think of nickel
Yeah.
or
True.
copper or other
Yeah.
minerals. So Indonesia also has an interest to be able to enter the market. Now, I believe that that relation can further improve. We are both too important for each other, the European Union and Indonesia, to not fully benefit of that relationship. So politically and economically, socially, culturally, we should have more connection between the two. And in Europe, something interesting is happening now. In Europe, we are understanding that Indonesia is an important country. And so in many European countries, capitals, you see a change of thinking about Indonesia. Indonesia is really getting an important country for Europe. And that understanding is growing slowly, but it's really visible. So you see a change in attitude in European capitals towards Indonesia. We do recognize Indonesia is important. Indonesia matters. So that's why we want to reach out to Indonesia and we want to cooperate.
Okay, Indonesia and the Netherlands are among the countries most affected by climate change, especially the sea level rise. Now, what has the Netherlands done to deal with this? And is there any cooperation between the two countries in dealing with the impact of climate change, sir?
Yeah, what can you do about climate change? Of course, in the first place, you have to try to prevent it. So that is why we have to really be very serious about changing our attitude and our the way we live regarding the use of energy. So the energy transition is very important. That has to do with the way energy and natural resources are produced.
Yeah.
The nickel discussion.
Yeah.
Indonesia is a big producer of nickel, and nickel is important for the batteries. We use the batteries for electric vehicles. And I see electric vehicles also here now in Jakarta.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make sense to use an electric vehicle when the electricity is being produced by coal.
Yeah,
so it is the whole chain. It's not only having an electric vehicle, but of course the whole chain of energy down to the production is important. Now, that's not an easy process.
True.
And like Indonesia, the Netherlands also, like 10 years ago, we were very much lagging behind. So the government then said, okay, we have to invest in the energy transition. It is expensive, but at the same time, it will generate a lot of benefits in terms of technology development, in terms of reducing the cost of energy. I pay my bill now, my consumption of energy now is much lower than it used to be.
Back home?
Yeah, for instance, my private consumption of energy is lower. On my roof, I've got solar cells, you know, solar cells. So I use solar energy for my electricity generation. So my electricity bill goes down.
Yeah. Is it common?
Very common.
Oh, very common.
Yeah, very common. And also the use of, for instance, electric vehicles is very common now. We have closed down almost all of our coal-generated power plants, the coal-fired power plants. So we try to reduce the use of coal, and we increase the use of wind power and solar power. Indonesia has a lot of potential in geothermal energy, hydropower.
Right.
You've got mountains, a lot of hydropower, and of course also wind power and solar energy. We're all very keen on the development of hydrogen. So you see that there's a huge transformation in our energy landscape, and it is costly, it's expensive. At the same time, it will generate a lot of benefits. And you see that the Dutch industry is now moving to investing in technology for generating different ways of energy, and also technology in reducing consumption of energy. Hier in Indonesia, yang paling mahal itu AC kan? The air conditioning here is extremely expensive
and vital.
But there are ways to reduce the use of energy, because houses here are hardly ever isolated. So the cool air is disappearing very quickly. So with isolation, one could indeed also reduce the consumption of energy here. But energy is still very cheap in Indonesia. So only when the energy price is changing, people will have to change their attitude. I think everyone has a responsibility, but we can of course also, I think the rich countries have more responsibility because they already used a lot of their carbon room in the past. But it doesn't mean that Indonesia does not have a responsibility as well. So we are all together in this.
So now ASEAN and the Netherlands have paved commitment to intensifying cooperation through the ASEAN, the Netherlands Development Partnership Committee in May 2024 this year. Would you elaborate on that, Mr. Ambassador?
Let me first say that we think that ASEAN is getting more and more important and more relevant for us. This part of the world is doing extremely well in terms of economic growth. It's also doing extremely well in terms of becoming an independent, autonomous geopolitical player. Indonesia is a very strong partner within ASEAN, and we know Indonesia quite well. So ASEAN is important. That's why we were extremely happy that last year we could sign a development partnership with ASEAN, and already 2 years before we signed the Treaty of Amity and Cooperation with ASEAN. So you see the connection between Europe and the Netherlands in particular with ASEAN is getting closer every day. So we basically want to have a better connectivity between universities, students. Now already there are 3,000 students going from the ASEAN region going to the Netherlands on an annual basis. But we want to further increase that mobility. So yesterday a 9 million euro program was established from the European Union, a subsidy to ASEAN, to strengthen mobility with the European Union, but also strengthen mobility within ASEAN. So we see there's a huge potential within ASEAN for mobility, which we also have within the European Union.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, last question for this segment, Mr. Ambassador. The ASEAN and the Netherlands are partners since a long time ago. What initiatives and activities have been achieved so far, and what could be pursued in the future?
So in the relation between the Netherlands and ASEAN, we as a development partner have offered to share our expertise on a number of issues. One is, for instance, very specific but very important, is the law of the sea. I already said the Netherlands is a strong maritime nation. We have a lot of experience. Also, we are a nation with a lot of experience in the legal domain. So we provide courses at the Klingendahl Institute for diplomats from ASEAN in the field of law of the sea and the UNCLOS. It's a specific sector, but important, because the sea is something which is being shared by many ASEAN countries. So how to manage together in a peaceful manner the sea traffic, also territorial disputes. Think of mineral resources, the underwater resources. So there's a lot of potential conflict there, but it's important to have a good legal framework. Another example is that we just recently shared with ASEAN a report on opportunities for agricultural investments in ASEAN. So as I told you already, we are a strong agriculture country,
Yeah.
and we think there are many opportunities for investments in the field of agriculture. Think of all these big cities in the ASEAN region. And the third topic, completely different, is cyber. Digital technology, but also cyber, which means the way we share information, digital data, and how can you protect your data?
Cybersecurity.
Data breaches. Indonesia is facing its challenges as well.
Yeah.
Our country also. Everyone, I think, is facing challenges in protecting data
Nowadays. Yeah.
So cybersecurity is becoming more and more relevant for all of us. So we work together between the Netherlands and ASEAN countries on that issue. So we are interested in how ASEAN countries protect their data, and we also share our experiences. These are 3 examples.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for your views, Mr. Ambassador. Demikian pemirsa perbincangan saya dengan Duta Besar Belanda untuk Indonesia, His Excellency Lambert Grijns. Terima kasih telah menyaksikan International Corner. Sampai jumpa di segmen berikutnya. Halo pemirsa, Anda kembali menyaksikan International Corner bersama saya Gracia Simanjuntak. International Corner masih bersama dengan Duta Besar Belanda untuk Indonesia, His Excellency Lambert Grijns. Mr. Ambassador, for this last segment, we will talk about Indonesia's new capital city, IKN. So let's get to it. President Joko Widodo will lead a ceremony commemorating the 79th anniversary of Indonesia's independence in the new capital city, IKN. How do you view the development of a new capital city that the Indonesian government is currently pursuing?
Well, as an urban planner, I'm extremely interested in this topic. Of course, my latar belakang, my background is urban planning, so I followed this development very closely. Let me start by saying that actually it's very normal to build new cities. We've been doing that in the Netherlands over the last decades. Many other countries are doing it because the population is growing, and it makes sense to sometimes start with a completely new concept. In this case, the concept was right in the middle, in the heart of Indonesia, and one I think important policy objective was to try to shift the economic balance more to other parts of Indonesia, not only the dominance of Java, but also try to help boost, support other parts of Indonesia. So yeah, I think that makes sense. I will be going there myself on the 17 Agustus next month.
All right.
We are being invited by the government, all ambassadors, to be there, and I'm very excited. But
will it be your first time?
It will be my first time, yeah. I had 2 occasions before. I was supposed to go, but it was cancelled last minute, so I'm very excited. And I believe in itself in the idea of new cities. The only thing is, don't rush it.
Don't rush it.
Yeah, you can't build a new city just within 1 or 2 or 3 years. A city is an organic thing. A city should live because there should be people living in a city, and it's the people who make the city. You can't build a city with just dropping buildings left and right, and a shopping mall and a palace and a hospital. It's the people who make the city, so give that time. Okay. So of course, I think for President Jokowi it will be hard because he doesn't have much time, but for the city it requires time to grow into a serious independent city. So that's I think the most important thing which the IKN people might need is some more time.
So don't rush it.
Don't rush it.
Okay. In the development of Indonesia's new capital, Mr. Ambassador, has there been Dutch involvement in terms of investment in any of the projects in IKN that are of interest to the Netherlands? And if not, is there any potential for cooperation on certain projects in IKN that are interest to the Netherlands?
Yeah, we are very interested in this new city. Let me give you a few examples. For instance, we have been approached to help the city developers in the field of water management. There are a few challenges they are facing. For instance, a tunnel which is being built, which requires complex water management procedures, but also, of course, the water management of the city.
Yeah.
So we do provide support through the Asian Development Bank with Dutch funding in the field of water management, especially in the field of nature-based solutions and sustainable management of the water system. Another example is the field of agriculture again, because somewhere the people who are going to live in Nusantara, in IKN, they have to eat, and they want to eat vegetables and fruits and fresh products.
Yeah.
So I think there's an opportunity also for Dutch investors to go there. A third example is the field of research and education, where Dutch universities have signed an MOU with Nusantara Authority, with IKN, in the field of education and research, especially where it comes to sustainability and ecological management of the city.
Oh, good. The new capital city will be developed as a sustainable forest city, right? That incorporates inclusivity, eco-friendliness, and resilience. Now, does the Netherlands open up the potential for collaboration regarding sustainable development at IKN?
Yeah, if you look at the intentions, I think they are really very impressive. Building an eco-city or a city according to sustainable standards, it's a great intention. At the same time, you can't build a city in a forest without also maybe damaging that same environment, or you have to take into account the indigenous rights of the people who live there.
Right.
And again, also in the Netherlands and in other countries, when you build a new city, you have to, it comes at a cost. What we do in the Netherlands, of course, we try to compensate the negative effects at the same place. So I also see that happening here in Indonesia. There's a lot of forest planting. The forest is being cut.
Yes.
You can also plant new trees. Yeah. What we do in the Netherlands also is to compensate the damage we do to nature at a different location.
Oh, okay,
so
move it.
There's a rule which says if you build a house here or build a factory here, and it will come at a cost, but you can compensate that cost somewhere else in the Netherlands by creating or by building nature. It sounds a bit paradoxical, building nature, but so investing in nature conservation.
In another area.
Yeah, in another area, or even in another country. So there are ways to compensate, but of course I think it's also important for the people who live there, especially the indigenous people, that their rights are being taken seriously, and then when their rights or when their land is being used for the city, that they are being compensated in a proper way.
Last but not least, Mr. Ambassador, are there any inputs that the Dutch government would like to convey to Indonesian government in pursuing the current development of new capital city?
Yeah, well, once again, we are very interested. We offered our assistance in helping in thinking the concept of the new city. One example is that I think the idea is to make it a city where the use of cars will be limited, and where mobility will be done as much as possible in a sustainable way. Well, the Dutch are very good at bicycles, the use of cycle, so we have a lot of expertise there. So we offered our expertise there to the government. At the same time, of course, the city of IKN is connected to the city of Jakarta. one of the ideas is what to build a new city means that you reduce the pressure on Jakarta.
Yeah.
But we also see that in Jakarta there's such a demand for expertise on reducing flooding, the banjirs in Jakarta. So what we do in connection with the Indonesian government is not only connected to Indonesia but also to other cities in Indonesia. But more in general, we are very supportive. Once again, I think it would be helpful if there was a larger time frame
Yeah.
for everyone to be involved, because you can't build a new city just like that in 2 or 3 years. Miracles don't exist in my view. But we are very committed and very curious to see how things are going to develop.
How long will it take, the process, you think?
Look at the city of Brasilia in Brazil, which started in the 60s. And it took a long time for them to make it a livable city where people wanted to go to. I've been there a couple of times and it's a lovely city now. So people really want to live in Brasilia because there are like millions of people there now. But it took 40 or 50 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time and for coming by today, Mr. Ambassador.
Thank you very much for this interview. Much appreciated.
Thank you. Demikian pemirsa perbincangan International Corner dengan Duta Besar Belanda untuk Indonesia, His Excellency Lambert Grijns. Terima kasih telah menyaksikan International Corner Antara. Sampai jumpa di episode berikutnya.
Thank you.